Hey, what's it on?
John, good to be here. Thanks for the invitation. I think we have to celebrate something, right?
Yeah, cool.
What
That's
is
a
it?
big party today.
What
Big,
is
big,
it?
big
I mean,
party. What a day!
World Water Day.
Woohoo! World
Happy
Water
World Water
Day!
Day.
Happy World Water Day!
Happy World Water Day.
Oh,
Happy
that's
World
a cool
Water
one.
Day. Wait. 15 seconds. Shooting on the next. Yes, yes, something.
Okay, so you noticed that we wanted to play funny. It's not a funny topic, but nevertheless, we just wanted to put a bit in perspective this element of let's celebrate World Water Day.
Yeah, because everybody is celebrating, right? I mean, check out the streams. I mean, you said this in your pretty good podcast. Um, Everybody is celebrating today World Water Day, but I don't get it. Where does the World Water Day comes from?
Well, if we look at the history of World Water Day, that's this full try from humanity to say let's come together. It was in Mar del Plata in
Mhm.
1977, and they said, okay, we have a problem. We still have those billions of people which don't have access to water,
Yep.
and whatever we try it just doesn't work. So they tried the water decades in the 80s, didn't work. They tried the Millennium Development Goals. Now we
Yep.
are trying with SDG.
Yep.
And in 1993, they said, let's start something. Actually, it was in December 1992 where they said, next year, the 22nd of March, we do World Water Day. And guess what? We're in 2022, which means roughly it's the 30th edition of World Water Day.
And I have some numbers. Still today, 2.2 billion people, that means 30% of the population, have a lack of safe water at home. Almost 2 billion people globally do not have any basic water service. And 17 million women at least in developing countries give birth to children somewhere where they don't have any hygienic standards or any sanitation at all after 30 years. And we are celebrating today? I don't think so. Hey, but before going deeper, hey, where we are.
So you might have guessed that we are together physically at the same place, which is not that often because usually everybody is in its own window. So that is something quite uncommon. And we are at GF Piping Systems. So GF Piping Systems, if you've been listening to my podcast, you might know that GF Piping System is a world leader in piping systems. So it means pipes, fittings, valves, actuators, sensors, and all of that. But it's not about that today. I think the added value of GF in that word of the water industry is that GF is the yin of the process company's yang. What does that mean? It means that not many people in this planet are really appealed and interested in building the best product, the best physical system. But many people are really, really looking to have the best process. And it turns out that all these people which are interested in this very special fashion of having the best product, the best physical system happen to work for GF piping systems. So if you are a process company and you want to put some products around your process, you want your water to flow from A to B, you want your water to be monitored, you want to have exact conditions that are fulfilled, then we can be your partner. And I'm saying we because yes, I'm working for GF Piping Systems. So I'm very happy to have my employer and my company today sponsoring the show and hosting us today physically in Schaffhausen.
It's a great honor to be here, and I had a tour, and it was pretty amazing to be here. Back to topic. World Water Day.
So, what we have for today is a bit to have a look at what we could be doing to end World Water Day. Why do we want to end World Water Day? For the reason we were doing those jokes so far. So, we want to end it because we really think that we should come back to the core of the purpose of World Water Day. And the core of the purpose is let's solve this problem and let's bring safe water to everybody.
But before that, I would like to put the World Water Day in context. I mean, it's coming from the UN, right? Almost 30 years ago. But I mean, World Water Day is always every year, 22nd of March. But there are other days.
So,
Other days at all. I mean, we are talking here about a so global issue, right? We have to solve. And we put that in the same context with the day of French language. Nothing against you, nothing against your language, right? Or the day of chess, the day of bicycle, day of whatever. There's almost 365 special days.
There's a day of German language.
Okay, thank you. But among that, there is the crucial and so important World Water Day. Shouldn't that be, I don't know, highlighted in some other way, in some other context? I mean, it's together with that. I mean, it's the same with International Women's Day. Every year we celebrate International Women's Day, and all the women come together and say, "Hey, yeah, happy, happy." But the idea was that women and men are equal, and we use this day to say, "Hey, still they are underpaid. Still they are not equal. We don't treat them in the same way." But nothing changed.
It's a bit the element of when you have one special day in the year, that means that the other 364 days you can do whatever you want.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
And that's a bit the
exactly.
problem.
It's the same with World Water Day. But anyway, there's nothing to celebrate. And we should stop that until we have really solved the problem. Because this way that we put 22nd of March saying, hey, celebrate World Water Day, and we will come to social media later. What we have figured out, what's going on there is incredible.
So, what do we have on the plate for today? We
Yeah,
have this element of watching what we've noticed on social media, what we've noticed from all the companies in this industry and outside this industry. That comes towards the end. Before, we have been asking some experts for wisdom, and we also would like to collect your wisdom. So if you're in the chat right now, we have the chat under our eyes. Don't hesitate to just add your ideas, and we will be taking your ideas toward the end of the show as well. So please, that is a collaborative show. But we've been asking experts, water industry experts, people which are at the periphery of the water industry, and also charities. And
correct.
actually, I'd like to start with that because Björn did a very, very interesting job at contacting those charities. And honestly, I was very surprised by the answers. What's the answer you got the most?
Okay, let's put that also in context a little bit. So I was asking a couple of charities, or let's say 8 organizations, who do something for water, right? They do have water projects, and so I was contacting them and I was asking, hey, we do have this water show, and we just wanted to have a minute of your time. Please answer the question: what would you do as charity organization if you would have the power to stop exactly this? Give us just 3 ideas. And the interesting part, I mean, I contacted a couple of, as I said, charity organizations. 3 I would like to highlight: Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, Greenpeace, and the other one was, who was it? I forgot it right
Oxfam.
now. Oxfam. Correct. All 3 said, they answered me. They said, sorry, we don't have time to answer you the questions. What does it mean if you as a charity organization like Bill and Melinda Gates, which is pretty much dedicated to exactly this issue, and they don't have the time to take 1 minute and give us an idea what their solution would be?
It's not to blame them because I guess they must be busy doing stuff. And we know that, for instance, the Bill and Melinda Gates have done an amazing work with the Reinvent the Toilet Challenge. But it's interesting to get the answer. For instance, I think it's Greenpeace that told you we are busy doing other stuff.
Yeah,
And
it's not on the priority somehow. As
it,
I said, it's not blaming. It's not blaming.
it's not blaming, it's just revealing, because I do get that if we, and sorry for the word, if we fuck the planet, we have a big problem. But on the other hand, I'm also asking, if I want to be a bit provocative, why do we want to save the planet if we still have so many people just dying? I mean, who's going to live on that planet if we're not following that as well? And I think it's a bit forgetting how all of that stuff is connected, because we will see that many of our experts talk about water scarcity, the consequences of climate change, and all those elements. And actually, this is all the same story. And it's a bit, if you're asking, what do you need to save the world? And people will tell you zero carbon. That is a clear message. And when it comes to this World Water Day and water topics, what is our clear message? What is, if tomorrow I stop someone in the street and I tell him, hey, yesterday was World Water Day, what's the clear message? Would you have something to say?
I mean, I wouldn't take it up front, but let's say one company said today in social media, yeah, we should stop the water during we brush our teeth. It was a water company who did this morning. I mean, it's like Isabel said. Isabel said World Water Day is similar to World Women's Day. It's just a bit of blue washing. It's not greenwashing, it's blue washing. I like that.
And I think there's a fundamental problem with all of that, which is, and that's something that Ravid Levy said to me on my microphone when I was interviewing him for the podcast. We're always talking of this: stop the water when you're brushing your teeth. We're never speaking of who is really using that water. And when we brush our teeth, if you stop the water when you brush your teeth, or if you pee in the shower, what is it saving? It's not even saving the quantity of water you would be consuming if you eat 1 square of chocolate. So if full year long you're having 2 bars of chocolate, so 10 square of chocolate, that is more water than all the water you will be saving all year long if you pee under the shower and you stop the water when you brush your teeth.
So that means you're saying you're calling to everybody we should all pee under the shower? Is that what you're saying? Is that a
Yeah,
solution?
I'm saying it's not the solution. I'm saying it might contribute. It cannot harm to do that, but on the magnitude of stuff,
Yeah.
it's just peanuts compared to the real problem.
True. True.
So
Let's go and let's
let's
ask
go
guys. I
into
mean, as I said, right, we asked the industry leaders and as well a couple of charity organizations. Some charity organizations they answered us, and we will go through that, and some said, "Well, we don't have time." Maybe
what I propose you is to start with some of our experts, and actually we classified our experts by answer. We clustered the answers, and you'll see that this element of connecting to climate change is something which stood out in what they said. Here's their propositions.
Litres should commit to a certain number of litres of water use per day. In our part of the world, we had a target of 155 litres per person per day. In America, they've got another target, but I think we should say they all have to live on 100 litres per day for a year.
As a water resource economist, I think about issues related to water scarcity. Water scarcity is made much more complicated by climate change. Climate change is affecting our water supply and making it more variable, more unpredictable in many ways. So if I were a world political leader, one of my first actions would probably be to influence climate policy.
So I think, Björn, you found a map which is kind of revealing of what water scarcity means today.
for what from one of the charity organizations we contacted. One was Life Needs Water. They are saying, well, if we would have the power, we definitely would plant 1 million trees because these trees are part of the climate change and they could partially solve at least a bit of the problem. This is one of your guests said as well, right? So the climate change is really somehow the issue. But beside that, also, I mean, there's also the idea to reduce the water consumption, right? So I want to open this bottle a little bit because we have here in the where we are here in Middle Europe. So that means the consumption is somehow 120 liters, 110 liters a day per person, right? And someone is
I would say
saying,
much more, but yeah. But okay, yeah.
don't blame on that. But some people are saying, hey, we have just to put a number for each and every person. And then we could solve that. The issue really is that it is subsidized in so many countries, the water, that the people are not forced to save the water. I'm just thinking about the Middle East. I mean, what do you pay for water in France? Total.
I think the average is about 1.7 euro per cubic meter.
Something, right? So we pay even more, I think, more than 2 euros in Germany. In some countries, you pay less than 50 cents, less than 50 pennies, right? Half a dollar, because the rest is subsidized. And if you subsidize things like this, you don't motivate, you don't force the people to save the water. So that's why I put a number just on a person saying, hey, this is your consumption. You can't spend more, will not definitely not help. I don't think so.
Well, that's just the tip of the iceberg because, again, let's put things in perspective. We have the consumptions of the humans. So we, all of us in our homes, that's about 10% of the water. Then you have the consumption of the industry, that's about 20% of the water. Mm-hmm. And then you have the consumption of the agriculture, which is 70% of the water. So I think it would be helping in terms of sending the message out if we're saying we have that much of an allocation. So here Scott was mentioning, why not 100 liters? I know that Paul O'Callaghan is regularly working with this charity and this organization in the Netherlands, which is working for the 50 liters home, which is saying Let's
Yeah, it was a
rebuild
gray
our
water. It
homes.
was a gray water. Yeah.
Yeah, and let's try to live on 50 liters. And the absolute bare minimum you need to live is 20 liters. So you can set the bar somewhere and at all these levels. But it's if at the same time you still have your industry next to you, which is just taking as much water as they want, and the farmer just behind your house, which is just watering for free, then you're not solving the problem.
Do you know what I saw this just last week? It was a fresh number. Do you know how much I think it was Nestle or Pepsi? I don't know. In Germany, pays for water
No,
15 cent. 15.
but you have to put that into context. I mean, I'm we are right now in Schaffhausen. Schaffhausen became rich because it is next to the Rhine Falls.
Okay.
So you're next to the Rhine River. If you dig a hole wherever you want, you find water. So to pay 15 cents here is not stupid. I mean, there's so much water.
Yeah,
Why
but
would you pay more?
But the industry
you
is
have to put
paying.
things in
Yeah,
context.
but the industry is paying 15 cent, and the people next to who live there, they pay a euro 50. That is the issue. I'm not saying. So that means we are treating the industry. Sure, they have a different consumption as the common people here, but
Okay, I think
they pay different.
you're a bit switching to one of our future topic, which is about the price of water. So I'd like to just before give you a quote from Revit, because I haven't taken it for the videos, but Revit Levy was saying we should be setting word targets when it comes to reuse.
Yeah,
So
for the
there's
industry,
water scarcity,
but for the industry.
and we shall set reuse targets and adapted targets to every single type of players. So it could be industry, it could be players. You have the example of Israel, which is reusing 90% of its water. You have the example of Singapore, which is using the new water. That is what everybody hears about. But the average worldwide of reuse is between 3 and 4%. And when we look at the water balance, by 2030, we will be missing 40% of the water needed, which means we will not run out of water. We have to find this water somewhere. And reuse is a portion of that equation. What do we do to push for that?
I agree with you, but let's say we are mixing a little bit the topics right now. We started with the people, and we are going now to the industry. I fully agree that we should have something like that. We have the CO2 emission trade. We have something similar for the industry to reuse their water. That they have some kind of certificates they can trade on the market. I mean, the reason why Tesla is so rich is not that they have the best car in the world, to be pretty honest, even if they have released the first car from Grünheide recently. But the reason why they are so big is the emission trade. The emission trade, they trade the CO2 certificates. Why can we not use this concept, put it onto the industry and saying, okay, you have this amount of wastewater certificates, you can purchase, and if you need less, you can trade them on the market. And if you need more, you also have to buy them on the market. It's a similar concept. It is proven in Europe with the CO2 certificate. So, I mean, we have not really reached the level we wanted after, I think, 15 years right now, the CO2 certificate, but at least it has an impact. I like the idea to putting something like this, which is already, has proven somehow the concept that we take this, put it to the industry, and let's give it a try.
Okay, we will be switching to our next video. I'll just give you before an answer to that. I was giving a conference 3 weeks ago in a university of economics. I was expecting giving a conference, a university in economics, people would try to get that balance of you can be trading stuff. Trading has advantages and drawbacks. And maybe I was terrible. Could be that I was really bad. But in the conclusion, there were some questions. And all the questions were around, why are you a Neville supporter of capitalism? Like, I had the horns and everything. I was really the devil. And I think there's still an element there to take into consideration, which is how people feel about water. It's not like your everyday good. When you say carbon emissions, that's okay. I mean, everybody gets why you have to pay for carbon emissions. Paying for water is a different topic. But let me park that one
but
here.
we can take the concept. It's about the concept, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't disagree with you. I'm just saying it's sensitive.
Why not? That's new for me.
Yeah, it's also new for me not to disagree with you. But let's go to a different set of solutions we got from other experts, and you'll see that there's a common thread in all the set.
going to be much more a developed world solution, so I apologize for not being maybe worldly enough, but I think more openness in data is a big piece. Some utilities in North America are legislated to provide open information, but I would love to see that extend to even more information. But I think it would help both the creative public and private side to find better solutions if there was more openness in data, not just static GIS information.
I would make myself and my colleagues as redundant as possible, as fast as possible. When we look at the water treatment market, I think we could see a lot more innovation and a lot more advanced and better and lower cost treatment at higher quality if there were more decentralized decision making.
It's a little bit polemic what I'm about to say, but be patient. I would break down the institutional silos. I'd actually abolish the World Bank and these massive institutions that have been built up over time. They do amazing work, but the self-interest and driven in those institutions are just too large. We need to decentralize them. So still take the principles of these incredible organizations that do incredible stuff, but we need to decentralize them and bring them into local environments, because at local level, people actually know their community. Decentralization, break down the silos.
Okay, just before I take on what they're saying, thanks a lot for all the comments. It's amazing. I'm just pinning many comments. So we'll have a section at the end where we take all your inputs. So keep them coming.
Yeah.
But regarding what we just heard, there's something which was really appealing to me in what we heard from our experts, which is we are calling it World Water Day. Like there's a solution for the world. And actually what they're saying, and they're fully right, if you ask me, in my humble opinion, there's not one solution for the world. There's a million solutions in a million different places. And we need to take a localized and decentralized approach if we want to tackle that. But I think what stood out for you is what Katrina Donaghy said about the World Bank.
Water Bank. I mean, I was digging a little bit deep into the World Water Bank. It has, there are reports that they harm the sub-Saharan region, that the project they do, it harms more the economy and drives the inflations up.
Why so?
Because they are centralized, controlled. They are not down to the people. So whatever they do, it doesn't really affect what the people needs on ground. That is the issue. I mean, I don't blame the World Bank that they are driven by only men, driven by only Americans, and things like this, right? Really, I would like to go to decentralize that. And I read the paper. I mean, every year they give a report. Every year, a big report. And I checked the report from last year. It's a 350-page report.
So you're making fun about me or what I read, but you're always reading weird stuff as well.
Yeah, sure. What do you think? How often I found the word water in this report? I mean, again, we are World Water Day. We have lack of access. I said 2.2 billion people don't have access to water.
How many pages in the report?
Don't ask. I found 36 words, water. But only 13 were in context. The others were just references to another paper. A report 2020 where this is the biggest issue, and you just name the word water 13 times, I can't get it. That's the World Water Bank. It is so centralized. We need a decentralized approach.
You mean World Bank?
Oh, sorry, the World Bank, sure. We need a decentralized World Bank, which is underground and is able to help the people and does not harm the economy.
Okay, let me play the devil's advocate here a bit, and then I agree with you. But there's also an Asian development bank. There's also an America's development bank. I mean, there are subsidiaries of it. And that's all I have for the devil's advocate. Then,
yeah, but the World Bank is driving this. They have the power. They have the financial power. They have the political power to drive projects, to solve this issue we have here, to bring water to 2.2 billion people.
I think
they don't do.
That's also something.
Not in the way the people are looking for this. It harms their report. It harms the industry. It drives the inflation down. Think about that.
That's also something which stands out in the book from David Lloyd Owen, which is World Water Funding. I mean, funding finding the funding issue. Sorry, it's not the right title, but it's the right content.
Yeah.
And what he's showing here is the book is Global Water Funding. And what is showing inside is that we have this approach of having charities bringing water to places which are at the other end of the world and thinking, well, what they must need is that. And then we send something, and then that something ends up being not used at all or not useful. And that is really where having this approach of having local people and empowering the local people to move forward and to move the needle is much more efficient. And I'll have an example of that. It's something Jacob Bossar explains on my microphone. So Jacob Bossar, he's the founder and CEO of Bosac. And what he's saying is that he's bringing water to countries like Suriname or, sub-Saharan Africa, basically speaking. And what he's saying is that he's only agreeing to build the water treatment plant if they commit to have a transmission of who is going to operate the plant. And if the local people commit to be operating it and running it for 2-3 years, and then only he agrees to take the money and to build the plant. So that is what we have to do. We have to involve all the stakeholders, because water is our problem. Everybody has a problem next to his door, and we need to be solving, all of us, the problem next to our doors, and to find ways to solve and help the ones we need to.
That's why, in principle, I like the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, because their approach is exactly like this.
Absolutely.
They build something that people can use for their houses. So that means they have some containers where they can treat the water. They have some toilets where they treat the wastewater by its own. So they are forced to use it by itself. It's not from somewhere else that someone's saying, hey, you have to use it like this. No, they have a kind of decentralized approach. So I'm helping the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation a little bit back to be in the positive mood here.
And to give them credit as well, it's just incredible how many startups just started from the Reinvent the Toilet Challenge. It's just crazy. From all different parts of the industry.
Have you ever seen them? I've been to Erawak, I think 5 years back. I saw all the different toilets they tested there. It's amazing. It's amazing to see that, and how they fund it, and different technologies, their facility center, what they do there. Great.
And what's impressive is what all these companies became, because they go in fully different directions, but arguably all of them are right. So it's really this scattered element of the water industry, but on the bright side of it. So let's say that we agree on that one. And it's not that often that Björn and me agree on something.
But it is a serious topic, so we shouldn't blame each other too much today. I try at least.
So now we have another set of answers, and that other set of answers is maybe the first where we will start to disagree a bit together and with our experts.
Simple. It's promoting startups, promoting clean techs to make something different, because big multinationals don't have the envy to do it. Well, you have to promote these clean tech startups by maybe giving some grants for developing projects, for making connections internationally. This is the way. I think this is the way.
I would say, first of all, listen to scientists. Mainly kind of incentivize companies to sprout new ideas and innovation. How much of your revenue needs to be allocated for R&D? I would want to put a legislation that will force you to do that. A lot of the reason companies are created and growing is because you're inventing the future.
So, I like Kobe. You have to listen to the scientist. He's fully right. But it has also proven that, let's say, a successful company who's investing in R&D, I think the number 3 to 8% of the revenue, they are more successful than other companies. But that's not the topic today. The topic today is we don't need any further technologies. All technologies to solve the problem are on the market, are available, but we don't use it right. We are not able to use the technologies to solve this bloody problem. That is the issue. We don't need it. I told you the story. I have been once on your amazing podcast, by the way, and you asked me. It was a similar question, and you asked me. I said, "Hey, I was asking this to my 8-year-old son." I asked my 8-year-old son, "Hey, Eric, there are people in Africa who do not have any access to water." I asked him. I didn't expect it much, right? How would you solve the problem? I wanted to have a children's mind on that. And he looked at me and said, "Daddy, pretty clear, just build a pipe." And then he left me alone and went to the PlayStation back. The point is not that the pipe is a solution, but with this simple minds, he said, there is a solution. We are not able to take the solution and bring it to the people. And principally, he's fully right. We can desaw the water, and we can, with a pipe, Do you know pipe supplier, by the way? And we could bring it to the people. That would be a solution. But we don't do it because there are some obstacles we are not able to overcome. But we don't need any other technologies because they're all there. They're all on the market.
Okay, that's where we start to disagree a bit with Björn, because you're right. There are lots of technologies on the market, and probably all of the ones we need exist somehow one way or the other. But
full stop,
the limit, the limit to that is the cost of those technologies. And R&D is not only just about creating something new out of your hat or your fertile imagination. There's also one element, which is finding a path to cost and a path to scale. So desalination is a good example. I mean, desalination 40 years back was totally impossible to market, or almost impossible to market. And because you had places which were desperate for water, desalination came to scale. And nowadays, desalination is acceptable in terms of cost. Now, desalination brings additional problems because you could be desalination the full ocean and have water for everyone, but then you have an energy problem, and then you have a brine problem. So
But
R&D is important for that.
I fully agree with you if it comes in the long term. We have an issue on a short term. There are 2.2 billion people which do not have access, and we have the technologies to solve that. I'm not saying that we solve it in a right economical way. So that means that it is so cheap that everybody can afford that. But at least we can solve the issue. That is the point. And in the later stage, maybe we can develop something that it is a little bit more cheaper, that everybody can have profit out of that.
I have to take that comment from Rabbit right now because it's very timely. Sorry.
What is he saying?
What he's saying is that we have technologies to solve the previous problems. We need carbon neutral and zero discharge technologies. The existing ones will solve one and create new problems. So what he's saying is that we have technologies for the past problem. But what about the future problems?
The problem we have right now, we can go back to the beginning. There are 2.2 billion people which have no access to any water at all, or to any treated water. Think about atmospheric water, for instance. We talked about that. That could be a solution. It's pretty expensive, but anyway, it could solve the problem. So I'm fully disagree with Ravid, even if I really respect you, but it is not about the past problems and we create news. No, we have the technologies, and that is what it is about. World Water Day, 2.2 billion.
Yeah, but if
we can solve that, and we don't do.
If I extrapolate your logic, we have 2.2 billion people which don't have access to water. Let's desalinate water for those 2.2 billion people. They will have access to water now, okay? But that means that we have the equivalent of brines which are introduced back to the ocean because we just desalinated water for 2.2 billion people, which means you're just killing the ecosystem of the ocean, and then you're accelerating climate change. I'm taking an extreme and stupid example. It's just to say that if the solution is somewhat worse or as problematic as the problem, then it's choosing between two diseases.
Yeah, but it is not given. It is not given. I mean, even if you could switch to cloud fishing, or if you could go to atmospheric water, you could solve at least locally the issue they have. What you did is you put a global desalination process on Africa, and we sent the water to somewhere. For sure, we have brine in a dramatic amount, right? And for sure we will harm somehow the ocean, but even there would be a solution.
But that means that now, if we are discussing all of that, we have an elephant in the room, and we have to address that elephant in the room.
Where is he?
That's me. No, we have an elephant in the room in the sense that there've been projects for decades to take water at the outlets of a river, pipe it, and bring it to a place which doesn't have any water. And the reason why all of that never happened was always because of money. So let's have a look at what our experts say on money, and then we will see that is maybe the most pressing challenge.
It should be that everybody worldwide can have access to safe and clean water.
I think if you wanted a simple answer, it would be to charge or ensure that we charge a fair price for water.
My first action would be to put a price on water that represents the value that water has.
The first one would be the pay-per-use scheme, which is not the case today.
Tell people to pay for water.
I'm going to be boring here and I'm going to reuse, I think, what a few of your guests said before, but we need to really round up and get a value on water. We need to place a price on it.
This is super controversial, but we need full cost recovery. If the systems can't pay for themselves based on the fees they generate, they will always be influenced by politics, by budget constraints and what have you. And the success of the countries that have very well-functioning utility sectors is also full cost recovery. At the end, it needs to pay for itself. We accept that everybody pays for electricity, everybody pays for internet, not just full cost recovery, but also a healthy profit for the providers. And in water, they can't even recover their costs in many countries. And I'm not saying we need to privatize the water sector for that. That's not the point. But a utility needs to be able to cover its costs from its revenue, not be depending on begging for money somewhere.
Pretty interesting answers, especially the one from Reinhard. But don't want to go into deep into that, because we also asked Caritas, one of the charity organizations. We reached out and they came with something that we haven't really expected. They said pretty clear, if they would have the power, they would stop one thing. And this is actually nowadays, especially a threat we have here in Europe and most probably all over the world. They said pretty clear, every day we spend 12, I have to take the number now right, 12 million US dollar each hour. Again, 12 million each hour for our nuclear systems we have everywhere globally. So that is in total, I did the math, 288 million US dollars a day, or 105 billions a year. So that means with that, I think we could solve each and every brine problem you create.
Actually, we could. Now that's the interesting part. You could not solve this each and every brine, but if you put things in context, so we have this spendings on the nuclear weapons, which is crazy high when you think of it. Now there's another spending which is 4 times higher. Do you know what it is? It's our subsidies to the fossil fuels. The word is subsidizing. I'm not saying how much we spend on it, which is, again, much more. We are subsidizing fossil fuel companies, and the average over the past 10 years is 400 billions per year. That's what we are spending in subsidies for the fossil fuel industry. And now, how much money would we need to bring water for all? To solve these 2.2 billion people without water, how much?
I think it's 140 billion?
113.
13.
That's the, I mean, that's always an estimate. Who has the real number? But still, if you look at the magnitude, the same amounts we spend on nuclear weapons, we could spend it on water, and then 1-to-1 we solve the issue. Or we say, let's subsidize just 25% less the fossil fuels, and with that we solve the water problem. So just to put things in context, when we're saying, oh la la, so expensive, how can we solve it? So that's the part where Björn and me agree. Now to the part where we disagree. I do believe that what World Water Day shows, 30 years in the making, 30 years of the international community saying we shall solve it. And before World Water Day, 20 additional years of the United Nations saying we shall solve it. To me, what that tells us is that countries, governments have failed in bringing water for all.
Sure.
And if they failed in bringing water for all, maybe we shall turn to some other people to bring water for all. And where I see a huge untapped potential, it's let's go to entrepreneurs, the same people that brought a path to scale for Tesla, the same people that brought a path to scales for iPhones. And I'm not comparing that to water. I'm just saying entrepreneurs always find a way. The market always find a way. But what do they need to do that? And that's what Reinhard said at the end of the video. He's saying they need to be making profit. If it's a business which is unhealthy, where you're not allowed to make profit and you're not even allowed to recover your cost, then why would you invest? And if they don't invest, and if the market doesn't invest, well, still, what will we have in 20 years? A World Water Day and 2 billion people without access to water.
Okay, I mean, I fully get the point that even this business needs to be profitable. I agree with Reinhard. I mean, he's a provider, that's why you have to say that. But joke aside, I mean, let's make it more on the emotional part, Antoine. Right? I mean, you are a father of 2 daughters. I'm a father of 3 boys. So think about that we are in the position that we are sitting somewhere in the desert. We don't have any access to any water. And we know if we don't have any access to any water, our children will die tomorrow. So, and now you are coming and saying, hey, by the way, I have a solution for you. We built a profitable plan with our startups, and they have to make money, and you have to pay for that. It will take a while, but then it is solved. How does it help the father who's right now sitting under a tree with the 2 daughters, which will die tomorrow due to the fact that they don't have any access?
Okay, what is that father doing today? Does he let his daughters die? No, he doesn't. He's buying water to people who resell water. And I think I've seen it in the chat. It's about, hey, all of us were drinking bottled water, which is just water, which is 1,000 times. If you take the cheapest bottled water, it's 1,000 times more expensive than utility water. And we take that and we say, okay, there's a solution. We can, and look at the countries.
No, the people get cheated.
They
The people
pay
there get cheated.
45 up to 45% of their income to have water. And that for what? For a shitty service and for water which is unsafe. What I'm saying is let's let entrepreneurs have safe and sturdy margins in that business, and they will be able to spend 3 to 5%
How
of their
long will
income.
it take? How long will it take? You have the power today. You give the power to the startups. How long will it take that you have the issue solved? And then we are back to the father of Tudores, who's sitting right now under the tree. And you give the answer to them.
I think entrepreneurs will have it faster than governments. Governments had 2,000 years to bring water for all. In ancient Rome, so 2,000 years ago, everybody, including the slaves, had water and sanitation. And they had more water today, more water in ancient Rome than we have water in Rome today. So it's just crazy when you think of it. We've spent 2,000 years to fail. What I'm saying is that entrepreneurs will get us much faster past that line. And yeah, simply.
The point is we need a solution now.
Okay,
that is the point.
Let's take the example of Saudi Arabia.
That is the elephant in the room. We need a solution now, because otherwise we will have millions of people will come to Europe also due to the fact that they are no longer able to live with their families there because they don't have any access. So you're coming and saying, yeah, we need the startups, we need new technologies, and everybody has to pay for that. Even if that would be right, it will not solve the problem today.
Okay,
and we need a solution now.
Two things there. Let me first quote Cesar Narvaez and Walid Khoury, which are saying the same thing. They say all these areas, multinationals don't want to go there just because they don't understand how that works. So let's help the startups. Let's help the entrepreneurs to go there.
But how does it help now?
That's my first point. My second point is look at what is working right now in some countries. Saudi Arabia is saying, we, the government, we are no longer financing new utilities. We are taking the engagement that if a private company comes, builds it, and pays for it, for the next 30 years, they have customers because we intend to live in our country, so we intend to pay for our water. What happens? Many groups from many places around the world come and invest, and they are building up the infrastructure. Same story in Brazil. Brazil, exactly the same story. They said, let's find private money, and private money is coming there. And then we as a government take the engagement that we will pay them over the long run. And that works. And that has been theorized. There's a theory about it.
Yeah,
I don't know if it's the word right. Theorized.
Yeah.
By Mariana Mazzucato. Mariana Mazzucato wrote an awesome book, which you shall read once you are done reading all the reports you're reading. And that's called The Entrepreneurial State. And what she's showing is that at the end of the day, when the states are really efficient, it is not when they are just putting their money on the table and building something. It's when they are committing as a customer to support whatever business is starting to develop and to solve problems which are societal problems. And that's what we need in the water sector.
The big issue we have already there is that we have, I wouldn't say failed states, but at least failed politics. Because what do you do? I mean, the World Bank is going there, is financing any project, and the politics are taking the money and putting it in the right pocket, and the other half is giving to some friends. That's what happened. And that's why the people suffer and the children die, to be pretty honest. I mean, if that solution, if private companies, startups would go there and they would build up something, and they can get a profit, and then they would sell the water and they would solve the problem, I think everybody would be happy. But we have to overcome the big hurdle, and the big hurdle is the politics, because they will not allow that, because then they will not get the money in the right pocket and the other half to his friend.
Here again, then we can go to the comments, because I tell you there's a one, I'm already grinning because it's really controversial what Rabbit just said, but I'm going to quote David Lloyd Owen again in his book, Global Water Funding, because what he's saying is that there is the right tariff, which is what you would be needed just to sustain the water industry and to bring water for all. And then there's the tariff that politicians will allow you to charge. And there's a strong difference in that. So it's exactly what you said. it's so much comforting as a politician when you're subsidizing the sector, because when you subsidize the sector, you have the power. The guy who is paying has the power, and subsidies, it's exactly that problem. But let's not go in.
I give you one small example. I mean, you live in France. I know that you love ristretto, right? If you go to a ristretto bar, you get a ristretto. What do you get with for free? Some water. You get free water. Free water. So he gets free water. Why not someone else? I think let's go with that.
That is so shitty of an argument. Congratulations, Björn. Okay, let's take the various comments. I realized that Rabbit has said some clever things in the chat because I've pinned it multiple times. So why do you say nothing changes? Does more or less people have access to clean water than 10 or 20 years ago?
I think this you can answer, right?
That's very interesting
because you did it in the postcard. I read it.
He's really right.
Yep.
There's more people who have access to water nowadays than people that had access to water 50 years ago. The problem is that we have exactly the same growth in population than the growth in people who have access to water. So we are evening out those two phenomena. And if you look, SDG 6, big in phases on all of that, we went from 70% of humanity has access to water to 74% of humanity has access to water. That's awesome. Every single person who gets more water, it's one. But 70 to 74%, and we are in 2022, and we are supposed to solve that by 2030, which means we are going that slow that when you look at the population in 2050, we will have the same problem. So let me connect that to the other comment of Rabbit, which is saying that in ancient Rome, there were much less people, and he's fully right. So he's asking, and I'll leave it up to him, is asking if the solution to water scarcity is also in controlling population growth. Do you have a good answer to that one?
Not really.
Difficult.
But I read meanwhile another one from Isabel. She's saying let's take the money from the space programs to use it. You're half and half right, because I would like to give one example. I mean, we have World Water Day.
That's a brilliant one.
Let's bring that, because there's a bridge. There's a bridge. I mean, we have not only World Water Day. Every World Water Day does have a special topic, and today the topic is groundwater. Make the invisible visible. So, and the issue with groundwater is it is underneath our feet, right? So we can't really see that. We have no really clue how much is there, how much we lose, how much we win, where does the water goes, and where does the water comes from. So that's really a big issue. But there is one NASA program, NASA together with the German, the German Aerospace Center.
Does it exist?
Still, 20 years ago, they developed a program. It's called the GRACE Project. It's called the Gravity Recovery and Climate Experiment. To make it short and simple, even for you, there are two satellites. They are turning around the Earth 15 times a day. And they are playing Tom and Jerry, because Tom is in front and Jerry is in the back. And the distance is 220 kilometers. So, and they measure the gravity anomaly. So that means if something with a gravity from the Earth, because of the height, because of the water, whatever, goes, then it goes faster or even slower. And they always measure exactly the distance to each other. And based on that, they can find out exactly the gravity issues. That's one thing. But the other thing is, beside that, they identified losses of groundwater. And one thing they identified is that over the last 20 years, one of the countries which suffered most in groundwater was Germany. And you mentioned that. We are here in Schaffhausen, which is very close to the Bodensee. Germany lost over the last 20 years the same amount as the Bodensee has. And the Bodensee is a lake, for all non-Europeans of you, which gives drinking water to 3 countries, Switzerland, Austria, and Germany. It's a huge drinking water reservoir. In total, it was 84,000 cubic meters, something like this is a real number. So Germany lost this amount of groundwater. And the NASA and the aerospace from Germany, they identified that. So I wouldn't agree on taking all the money from the space program and put it somewhere.
Yet, talking of money and talking of this example, there's something quite interesting. It's that Germany is using 19.5% of its renewable resources. So if you look at the definition of water scarcity, Germany is below 20%, so Germany is not a water scarce area. Denmark is using 20.5% of their water resources. So they are water scarce. What did Denmark do? Denmark just multiplied the cost and the prices of water by 3, by 4. It's the most expensive place in the world when it comes to water, but they also get the best water service and the best water balance. And they divided their abstraction by almost 2, which means that if you look today at Denmark, it's no longer a water scarce country, despite climate change, despite everything. So it just shows that there's a direct correlation between, one, realizing there's a problem, and then maybe the space programs can help if you need that, and acting on that problem. And that is really, I mean, we have great examples of countries who do it great. We shall be inspired by that. I have a couple more comments which I'd like to take.
Please.
We had that comment which was reacting to Nestle and what you said about Nestle, and which was also saying how many people drink bottled water. Like, it's far too much. And yes, it's true that if you look at countries like Mexico, today already there are more people. I mean, there's more spendings in bottled water than spendings in utility water. And the problem with that is that if you have to bet between one and the other, bottled water being 1,000 times more expensive, when you are spending the same amount of water, you get 1,000 times less water. So if we are giving our money to bottled water companies, at some point we have a problem, because we are no longer bringing money into the system for the
But
utilities.
on the other side, I was always, if I was traveling around the world, and each and every airport in Europe, if you need some water, you pay for a bottle of water 2, 3, even 4 euros for a small bottle of water. If you go outside Europe, you pay less than €1. That always makes me crazy. I don't get it. It's just water.
There are a couple of very interesting comments about the link between our water problem and the bigger scheme of climate change and water scarcity. And it is fully true that sometimes when we stay inside our water industry silo, we forget about how much connected it is. So we have that comment saying how the watersheds play an important role. More than 50% of the watersheds disappeared, and that is in turn a problem. And there's a second comment, if I recall right, which was about biomimicry. And there as well, that is a good example of how you could have local solutions and things which are really catered to your area. Maybe next to you, there's a biomimicry solution which would be working, and which would not be working like 500 kilometers from there, because there the environment and the ecosystem is fully different. So that brings us a bit back to this element of...
I get it from a research point or from the technology point of view, but does it really solve the problem we have? I'm always coming back to my point. 2.2 billion now, today. And tomorrow.
When you have a living building like what Dennis Moll is doing with Enso Earth, the living building, the concept is that you have a building which is self-sufficient, doesn't need external energy, and involves the full community in having this virtuous cycle.
And this is something for, sub-Saharan Africa?
Yes, of course.
Somewhere in the middle of the desert?
That can work everywhere. I mean, we have this vision of a desert, but what is a desert? A desert is a place where we've let the desert come. I mean, deserts are expanding. Why?
Absolutely.
Because we are not planting trees, because we are not doing anything to fight them.
That's coming back to the life for water, or life needs water. They said, if I would have the power, we would definitely plant 1 million trees, because this will definitely... There was a cool, I think, post today from Michael Stanley.
Gettysdorfer?
Yes, and he's exactly described how trees could really solve this. It was pretty interesting. I couldn't find the time today because I was driving to read all of that, but I can really recommend that.
There was also one from Asmik Barsegian, which was saying something very simple. It says, it is so interesting to do something fancy, but at the end of the day, if you just plant trees, it's going to solve the issue. So it's like, okay, we can be discussing hours and hours about R&D, but at the end of the day, planting trees is probably the best solution.
It's one of the solutions,
yet not the most sexy, because you want to be coming with something which is engineered and all of that, because we all are engineers at the end of the day.
All right. Do you have any other comments you want to bring in?
There's this one from Isabel about what the Asian Development Bank is doing. So we just want to clarify that we didn't speak against what they're doing. And I would be really interested if you have concrete example, just come to tell it to us. I think it would be very interesting to take like good case studies about that. And I have a last one from Lalit. And water subsidy has to stop. We pay pennies for water. That is why it's not treated with respect. Metering is the solution. Metering, absolutely. I mean, today you can just, if you take it in your backyard, then it's free water. And we said about subsidies. What's the problem with subsidies is that it's a way to keep the power and not to be very efficient.
Okay, but Antoine, I mean, you always coming with the ideas from the guests from your podcast. But what would be your solution? What are your? I mean, we asked the industry leaders, we asked the organizations which are putting a lot of power into that. But if it comes to the into a nutshell,
That's a tricky question.
yeah. But your three, what would do if I would give you the power today?
I would play long ball first because I would play with the education. And I know that you're going to tell me it's not going to solve the issue today, but I think it's going to solve the issue tomorrow. The day we don't have the debate anymore about the value of water, we've won. So that would be my first one. My second one, I mean, I have to agree with all the ones who told that we have to be charging the right amount of water. So that I would fully subscribe to what our experts said. That would be about money. Let me think about the third one. I'll let you start with yours.
I would go directly to the industry, and I would go to the industry. What I have discovered is in Europe, that's in each and every not only country, even in the counties, the industry pays different fees, depends on where you are. So what I would do is I would take a global European or a complete global fee for all industrial water treatment plants to collect some money. So if they pay more, then they have to. If they discharge more, they have to pay more. If they discharge less, they have to pay less. The same I would do. I would give them some kind of wastewater certificates. I would have the same kind of trading as we have as a CO2 certificate, and I would take this money and I will go down to where the need is, where the pain is the biggest, and I would find some decentralized solutions for these people. And on the long run, I will build up solutions outside the politics to get this solved. That would be my ones.
I would bridge your two last one, and that would be my third one. So you see, we agree on that. I would leverage the same mechanism than the carbon industry. There's a very interesting mechanism in Canada where everybody is paying a tax at the height of what they're consuming, and then all goes in a common pot, and they get a redistribution of that money. So if you're a big contributor, well, you don't get you're paying much more than you get back, and if you're a low contributor, well, you get much more money back. So you're incentivized to have the right approach. I would do the same with water, and I would do that in a radical, decentralized fashion.
And as a bonus, I would incentive the industry companies who do something locally to help the people. I found, for instance, some interesting from Economic Group. They mentioned today that they will what did they say? They will contribute to financing water pumps and drillings somewhere in Tanzania. I know the GF is doing a lot of good stuff. Also, Grundfos was mentioning something positive today with your funding organization, that they do something. So I would incentivize these kind of companies, maybe with lower tax or whatever, right, to force companies to do something more, because the technology,
a positive reinforcement of the right behavior.
Because the technology is here, the manpower is here. We have the solutions, but we don't bring them to where it is really needed.
Okay, we have 3 minutes left. In those 3 minutes, I'm going to tell you what I find positive about World War Today, because we've been explaining 57 minutes long what's wrong about World War Today. There's also a part of World War Today which, don't get me wrong, is really awesome. And I'm looking forward this Saturday, because this Saturday, because of World War Today, I'm taking my daughter to the wastewater treatment plant next to her home. And that is an awesome excuse of World War Today. I mean, without World War Today, there would simply not be a tour of the plants. But because of World War Today, they are opening the doors, and I can take my daughter and tell her, when you are pressing the button and flushing the toilet, it's going exactly there. So that's really brilliant. And something else which they do just next to me is that they bring the people to the areas which are protected, because those areas are the catchments of the drinking water. And that as well is important, to tell people, water is not created and put in the pipe that goes to our house. Sure. Water is living in a cycle. And I think every time I mention that, you're saying I stole that from you, but every single drop of water at some point went through a dinosaur. We have to keep
drink
that
the same
in mind.
Water the dinosaurs drank. Yeah, already. So, but I think we should stop. And I think that's the message today. We should stop celebrating, because there's nothing to celebrate at all.
Yeah,
I would love to celebrate this day if that is solved. I would be the first one, and I want to. My last example. I was checking a little bit social media today, what other companies are doing, and I mean, just wanted to give two really bad examples what some companies are doing. One is saying, which is Paul and Sharp, which is a fashion manufacturer, and they are use this day, the World Water Day, to promote the maritime fashion. I think this is not in the sense of what the Water Day stands for. And I found something else who was saying, Happy World Water Day, folks, save water, drink champagne, and it was not ironically.
Yeah, when you give me that example, it reminds me of Marie Antoinette. Don't have bread, eat cookies. It's just nonsense. But yeah.
So, but it looks like we could even discuss further, right?
Yeah, we
but
could
the
take.
hour is already gone. It's unbelievable.
I feel bad because what Antoine is saying is absolutely right. Must be because he's named Antoine. But the wastewater part of it is, at the end of the day, even more tricky because. There is an economical benefit at bringing drinking water to all, and it is potentially cash positive. But on the other end of the scope, it is much more difficult to find an economical balance to wastewater treatment. And nevertheless, you cannot have a healthy water cycle if you just forget about the wastewater side of the equation. But that is the part where it needs an involvement of the countries. And the SDG 6 surprisingly has a bit more of results to that extent, because we went from 80% of the world's wastewater is untreated to 44%. So I would say, hey, yippee, it's much better. And on the other days, that means that every second liter of wastewater today is still untreated, which is just a terrible burden on the ecosystems. But we are already over time.
Yes.
But that would be a topic for a full show. So maybe that would be something that we shall do with Björn. So come tell it to us, drop us a message in the chat, direct message, wherever. If you think that would be worth it, tell us, and we'll be very happy to take that one, because we have much more to say on wastewater as well.
Excellent, as always. Thanks everybody for joining us. Thanks everybody for watching, for connecting with us. Reach out to us, send us messages, do whatever you want, like the show, comment the show. We are very grateful that you're guys here, because only we all together can solve this problem. Thanks everybody. Thanks Antoine for the invitation.
Well, thanks Björn to come to us. Thanks for GF to hosting us to today, and see you pretty soon. That was a special show, so we will have our regular show next month as well. So see you very soon.
In 2 weeks. Thanks everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye.